Hello, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Keon.
And this is Trust Your Doctor, that podcast with the cameo of the century, because this week we watched Empress of Mars.
Written by Mark Gatiss.
Directed by Wayne Yip.
And aired on June 10th, 2017.
Bringing back the Ice Warriors again, Mark. I see your play.
What's his play? Just bring them back until they're good again?
Bring them back until he gets it right. People don't complain.
Well, I think he got it right this time.
Well, he still retroactively double canonizes Cold War, like just a throwaway line in the story where the Doctor's like, yeah, they built themselves into mechanized suits of armor, just like off the cuff to Bill, just in case anybody was like, we could just ignore Cold War. No.
No, you can't. Nice try.
See what you're throwing down, Mark Gatiss. I'm picking up what you're throwing down. I'm picking up what you're throwing down.
Are you appreciating what he's throwing down?
I'm picking up what you're throwing down. I'm picking it up.
Did you appreciate what he threw down 2 years ago?
Yeah, I had no problems with it. So, well, it wasn't 2 years for us. It was like 6 months, but...
No, I mean, like...
Oh, you mean like when this aired?
Yeah, no, I mean like I'm prompting you to read your tweet from 2 years ago.
Totally forgot to look it up.
No likes on my most recent tweet, I see.
Not yet.
Twitter has a lifespan of like 2 hours. I don't think it's going to get any engagements.
Probably not. June 10th, 2017. Dylan's quote weekly unquote sentence one reboot review. Empress of Mars. Basically the perfect hybrid of classic and reboot Who. So I guess I did appreciate it 2 years ago.
Definitely seems like the mix is more 75% classic, 25% modern.
And that's how we know it's the perfect hybrid.
It's true, I guess.
I think 50-50 would be pretty wacky and wild.
Yeah, get that modern nonsense out of here.
Actually, 50-50 is probably like Series 1.
Really? You think Series 1
Maybe Series 1 is like 75-20 the other way. I don't know.
Really? I think Series 1 is more classic. I mean, maybe we didn't know at the time. Maybe I didn't know at the time. But like having gone through now, the Stephen Moffat era, that's a lot more new and modern and less classic than like Series 1.
I don't know. Looking back at Series 1, I'm like, yeah, it's probably 50-50. It's hard to quantify these things, Because it's just hard to quantify these things. There's no like objective way to quantify this. Unless we're saying that this podcast is like the only objective measure.
Well, we created Doctor Who, remember?
Right. That's the only one consistent piece of Trust Your Doctor lore that survived the entire 5-year lifespan of the show.
We came up with that like a year and a half ago, I think. Or like within the last 2 years.
We never reference to Ghana anymore.
Damn. And even that doesn't count because it's more of a forced, look back type thing. But memes die.
Actually, the meme that never died was saying the companion. That
true.
Still happened with like the Clara. Hasn't happened for Bill yet, though. And will it happen before she leaves? That's the question.
She'd be one of the first companions, if not the first, to have it not happen to her.
I'm sure there was one or two in the classic series era that didn't.
Yeah, probably like Steven or something.
Random tangent, but Sophie Aldred wrote an Ace 13th Doctor novel, which is coming out this month.
Did she write it, or did she quote-unquote write it like Tom
wrote
Baker?
She wrote it, allegedly. Oh, you mean like how Tom Baker, quote, acts, unquote. He also, quote, writes, unquote.
Well, no,
Very nice.
His name, like... I believe the cover of Scratch Man like only has his name on it. And then if you turn to like page 1, it's like written by some other guy with like minor input from Tom Baker.
That's like how the O.J. Simpson book, If I Did It, the rights ended up with the family of what's her name who got killed?
No.
Yeah, of the victim.
Okay.
The family of the victim, right? So O.J. wrote this book called If I Did It, where it's like, if, I killed those people, this is how I would do it. And then when the rights ended up with the family, they republished it, and the new cover art has like, I did it in really, really big font, and then the word if in like size 5 font, like right before.
Well, I mean, wasn't there like actual video of him like committing the crime?
Oh, I don't know about that. I know that it's like, if you look at the evidence now, most people agree that, yeah, he probably did it, and he just had, like, a really good team of lawyers.
Yeah, like the good thing, the best thing to come out of that case was like that's how the Kardashians got famous, right? Like
Yeah.
the lawyer was a Kardashian, right?
Rob, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Or something like that. Some sleazy name like that, like all lawyers have.
Wow. Like Atticus Finch.
Sounds pretty sleazy to me.
It kind of does.
Speaking of sleazy, Victorian England.
Yeah, so there's like a shuttle launch going on to Mars.
Well, it's already landed. They're like waiting for the data to come back from Mars, I think.
Wow.
It's called the Valkyrie.
Interesting name to send your like, I don't know, non military shuttle into space with.
Hey, space probes always have the coolest names like Voyager, Pioneer, Mariner.
Yeah, Valkyrie sounds a lot more warlike than any of those.
I guess.
Maybe this is all part of the Space Force or, some similar initiative to like militarize space.
This might be controversial, but the Soviet probes always had way cooler names than the American ones, because the Soviet ones are like Lunikand, Venera, Sputnik. So, anyway, this lander is like, it can see under the ice at the Martian pole, so they're waiting for data to come back. And I don't know why the doctor is just like brings Bill and Nardole to this to mission control. Like, I don't know how he convinced Nardole to let him leave the vault. I don't know why he chose this point, like on the Earth at the exact same time he's supposed to be guarding the vault. It's left very unclear what's actually going on here.
But they're there, and they, like the people at the mission control, see a message on the moon written in rocks.
It says, "God save the Queen." The doctor's like, "Oh, hell yeah, a mystery to solve."
So they go back to 1881.
Mars, 1881.
Yeah, Mars, 1881. And they sort of just start exploring.
Bill's like referencing a whole bunch of movies, and I wrote in my notes, Bill pulls a Chris Boucher with all these movie references, and then she falls down a hole.
Yeah, they're in some underground catacombs, and there's oxygen down there. There's a fire burning. Somebody just left.
Yeah, Bill's like, if there's a fire burning, there has to be oxygen, so I'm going to take my helmet off. Well, she falls down the hole, and the doctor's like, hang on, I got a rope in the TARDIS. So he sends Nardole to get the rope, and Nardole goes into the TARDIS, and I guess the TARDIS is just playing tricks on them all, because the TARDIS is like, I'm going to leave now! And I think the doctor says, what the hell, Nardole? What the hell?
He definitely thinks Nardole just, like, left.
So the doctor's only option is to also fall down the hole. So he does.
The doctor confronts an ice warrior.
Yeah, because Bill kind of wanders off. They get split up for a bit here.
Yeah.
A very classic thing to happen.
Yeah, a lot of this is like, a classic show style setup. Like the TARDIS is either gone or out of commission. Uh-huh. Nardole is kind of the canine of this episode, where he just it looks like he's going to be part of the journey, but he just gets written out somehow.
Yeah, my favorite episodes where K9 was in were the ones where he just spent the entire episode charging in the TARDIS.
You didn't like the ones where he like encountered a small ledge and like no one was there to pick him up and put him on the higher ground?
Don't know why they didn't just implement the Dalek like fly up the stairs technology into K9 at that point.
They were purposely writing him out of episodes, and that was their way of doing it.
That was like every time he reached the edge of the TARDIS and he was like, damn, can't leave the TARDIS because there's this ledge. Or every time he was trying to get in, he's like, damn, can't get into the TARDIS because of this ledge. Then I had to start ignoring that because they're like, damn, what if we have to send K9 back to the TARDIS for some stuff?
So while the doctor is sort of talking things out with this ice warrior, Bill confronts a guy in a Victorian-looking spacesuit. Victorian, not Victorian. I don't know what that means.
Victorian. Well, she encounters what's his name? The Colonel, I think.
Yeah, the Colonel. Or was it Catchglove? Catch Love or whatever his name
Catch
was.
Love. No, I think she encounters the Colonel, doesn't she? Godsacre. I just called him the Colonel
had
in my
a
notes.
name.
Yeah, he did have a name, but I just called him the Colonel in my notes. Yeah, Bill references the Terminator. Nah, the new Terminator movie just came out, so that was kind of weird. But I watched it like 3 hours after watching this story.
Huh.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Bill encounters Catch Love or Godsacre.
Yeah, well,
the Colonel. I'm just going to call him the Colonel, honestly.
They all, yeah, I'm just going to call him the Colonel as well because that's what they called him. They all had names. All the soldiers we're about to meet had names. I didn't know any of them except Jackdaw and Vincy.
I do know the guy who played the Colonel was in The Visitation.
Whoa. What?
So there you go.
One of 2 classic show reappearances from actors.
He was actually also in another classic story that I'm not remembering now, so I'm gonna just look it up.
Yeah, this is
Oh no, not a classic. He was in the audio Frozen Time as well. So he's spanned all 3 kind of quote eras unquote.
Yeah, this is Anthony Caff.
Yeah, or Cafe, or oh, that is an L. I was like, that looks like it might be an I. That's definitely an L. Yeah, so Bill encounters the Victorians, and
the Doctor encounters Friday, the Ice Warrior, and then the Victorians.
because they threatened to kill him for messing with Friday. The Doctor's like, what the hell? Yeah, Friday's like the Ice Warrior. That's, I guess he's like subservient to these Victorians. They've got like a camp on the moon, Mars. Sorry.
Yeah, so they bring them into their sort of camp, and as Victorians start drinking tea and stuff like that, they tell the Doctor and Bill sort of how they got there. They encountered Friday's spaceship and helped him fix it up, I believe, and he brought them back to Mars. The name Friday came from the slave guy from Robinson Crusoe.
Yeah.
Like the guy who was about to be put to death by, I think he was like some sort of war prisoner or something, and like some other group was like going to put him to death, and Robinson Crusoe like saved him and made him his like assistant, quote unquote, but he's like for sure just like a slave.
Yeah, I haven't read Robinson Crusoe, so this is all news to me.
Should read it. It's a slog.
Great, then I won't. There's that TV show that we could watch for Inevitable at some point called Lost in Space. It was basically just Robinson Crusoe in space.
Yeah, didn't they remake that recently?
Yeah, for Netflix. I heard it's vastly different from the original show and is more like an inspired by rather than a remake.
Probably like the original to the book type thing.
Maybe. When I read the Wikipedia page of the original, it actually seemed to indicate that it was like surprisingly accurate to what it took from the book.
Yeah.
So.
Well, this episode is surprisingly accurate to what it's taking from Robinson Crusoe because of the imperialist attitudes of the Victorians. Victorians! I don't know why I keep saying Victorians.
Neither do I. I don't know.
So they're there on the moon for gems. They don't even try and like hide it, and they're like, "Yeah, we're here to conquer the Mars." Why do we keep saying the moon? They're there on Mars to like conquer Mars in the name of the Queen and take all its precious resources.
They have a painting of Queen Victoria that for some reason I guess they brought. Just they've got it set up on like an easel in their camp.
Friday doesn't speak at all.
Well, he does.
Later, but at this point in the episode, he's totally mute. And they reveal the Gargantua,
which is like this Victorian-styled laser cannon.
Well, it looks like a big drill, which you're like, okay, that's what they're going to use to mine the minerals. But it also has like a laser function.
They're just using the laser function to look for minerals, for being honest.
Yeah, they don't actually use the drill, I believe.
Meanwhile, all this is going on. Nardole is trying to get the TARDIS to go back to Mars, and it doesn't want to. So Nardole's like, what the hell? So he goes down to the vault and he asks Missy, like, can you help me figure this out? And she's like, it'd be easier if I showed you. And Nardole's like, oh no, what am I going to do? And then we don't hear from Nardole till the end of the episode.
Right. So the Doctor wants them all to leave. He's like, look, guys, you don't know what you're dealing with. The Ice Warriors, should you awaken them, will be far more powerful than you could possibly imagine.
Yeah.
So just leave.
But then they blow a hole into a cavern with gold-plated coffins.
Yeah, this is sort of the burial chamber of, not sort of, it is the burial chamber of
Ixra.
Ixra, the Ice Queen. Although it's not actually a burial chamber, it's more just like a stasis chamber.
I wrote down a note here that I guess ice warriors are like bees. They have one queen for like hundreds of male ice warriors.
Guess so. We don't really get into the ice warrior ecology too much beyond that.
I mean, given the amount of male ice warriors we've seen over the course of the show and the number of female ice warriors we've seen standing at a ratio of like one woman to like dozens of men, at least there's a heavy gender imbalance in this society.
Yeah, well, the doctor also calls it, and I think the ice warriors themselves also call it a hive, right? They live in like a hive, which is a new info.
Yeah, the doctor calls it a hive because he's like, this is an ice warrior hive. If you wake them up, then you'll have hundreds of ice warriors just on you. And Catchlove's like, whatever.
Well, we should also kind of explain the dynamic within the Victorian group. So
within the gang.
Yeah, so Catch Love. Catch Glove.
Catch Love.
Catch Glove.
Catch Love.
Catch Love, sort of, he's not in charge on paper, but he has the kernel sort of wrapped around his finger, and that's all we know for now. And it's very obvious that he's the one really calling the shots, and we sort of find out why in a little bit.
What a stereotypical name, Catch Love.
Well, they all had these like Victorian names like Jackdaw, and whatever the colonel's name was.
Yeah, I already forgot it, which is why we're just sticking with Colonel.
Godsiker.
Yeah.
And they all had names like that you just kind of expect from the Victorian
era. How about we look at the credits and read some of them off? We have Sergeant Major Peach, Jackdaw, Vincy, Nibs, and Coolidge. So
they sort of back off for a while. They don't actually go and raid the tomb yet, but Jackdaw is like, I'm going to do this, guys. Like, dead of night. Come on, Vincy, you're with me, right? We can be rich.
Well, so Sergeant Major Peach is put on guard duty because they're like, we'll figure this out in the morning. We should all sleep. Because Ixra's, like, coffin, I guess, is, like, gold-plated and it's got all these gems on the side, which is what they're there for.
Right.
So he's like, we'll figure it out in the morning. So Peach is on guard. Then Jackdaw gives him some coffee and drugs him.
Roofies him.
The other soldier's like, yo, what the hell, man? I don't know if there's Nibs or Coolidge.
It's Vincy.
Or Vincy.
Yeah.
Okay, Vincy's like, what the hell, Jackdaw? Jackdaw's like, look, I'm going to get the gold. The guy who's fixing the spaceship is way further along than he says he is, so I'm just going to take the gems and leave you suckers all here on Mars to die, basically.
You win, Vincy, or are you win?
And Vincy's like, what the hell, man? Vincy's like, I guess I have to be in because otherwise you're going to leave me on Mars to die. But Jackdaw takes a gem off of the coffin and that kind of activates it. And it turns
Ixra
out
wakes up and...
that the statue of Ixra on top's not a statue, it actually is Ixra.
So Jackdaw's dead.
Yeah, they have these guns that can, like, turn you into cubes.
Yeah, or at least like fold. They weren't actually cubes. They were just like weird folded like pretzel people.
Flashbacks to Fear Her.
I don't even remember that happening in Fear Her.
It just reminds me of her drawings.
Oh. They might have been cubes. I don't remember.
I'm going to pretend they're cubes because I'm imagining the Ice Warriors just stacking all the human cubes into like a bigger human cube.
You ever seen those weird body mods where like people like split their tongue in half and they can control each side independently?
Why?
Or like create giant holes in their cheeks?
No!
It's like the next form of that, like turn your body into a cube.
No. No. Why? Why?
So yeah, that happens. Ixra's awake and she's pissed. And she wants to destroy the Victorian force.
Yeah. For stealing her gems.
And also for just like being there.
imperialists.
Yeah. So the Victorians aren't having any of that. They run into the room and they draw up their guns.
Well, so the Doctor negotiates a parlay between the two for a bit here, where he's telling Ixra that they should have mercy and that they didn't mean anything and that they'll just leave. Like, as soon as they'll just leave. And Ixra is like not really buying it, but kind of buying it.
Then one of them shoots. We don't know.
On accident.
Yeah. Well,
allegedly.
On accident, yeah.
He looks kind of surprised that his gun goes off, so I buy it.
Maybe he was just surprised that like had absolutely no effect on Ixra.
Well, Ixra asks Bill for her opinion because she's the only other woman in the room.
And Bill's like, yeah, I think everyone should just stand down and just leave.
Yeah.
And Ixra's like, oh, well, I thought you were going to tell me to annihilate them, so I'm just going to ignore your opinion. She doesn't actually say that, but yeah, she does decide to annihilate them.
So they run out and they use the gargantuan to seal up the catacomb again. And Catchlove basically seizes command because he reveals that the Colonel was a deserter.
Yeah, so the Colonel was part of the Battle of Isandlwana, which is like a known like major British defeat. There's actually a good like movie about that battle. I forgot what it's called, but I'll try and find it and put it in the show notes. But there's a scene in the movie where like the British are like, yeah, we can take them. They're like looking with their binoculars over the hillsides, and it's like just a thin row of was it the Zulu force?
Yeah, if it was part of the Boer War, then yeah.
Yeah, and they're like, we can take them, and they just like they get to the top of the hill, and there's just like thousands more that they couldn't see before, and they're just like, oh shoot.
Well, Shaka Zulu was a military genius, so kind of reminds me of how the Australians fought a war against emus and lost.
Yeah, I think I've read a little bit about that.
And also how the Italians fought the Ethiopians and lost. So, was it the Italians?
Why is that like a big surprise? Like, I mean, fighting emus, like they're not even human. Like, yeah, that's a pretty big like surprise. The Australians.
It's a surprise to me because I feel like the Italians had the like technological advantage by like dozens of years.
But tech isn't always enough to get you through.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what this is proving. That tech, like, when faced against a superior military mind, tech doesn't help. So
Friday actually is sort of advising Araxa, and he's like, Araxa, like, stand down, like, just let them leave. Like, we don't have to destroy them because Friday is privy to the knowledge that Mars is now a dead world. And
yeah, he's trying to tell, I thought her name was Ixra.
Ixra? I wrote it down.
Oh, Iraxa, you're right.
Yeah.
He's trying to tell Iraxa, he's like, the planet is dead, like, don't do anything stupid because if we die, we die. Rocky 4.
Well, they'd actually been asleep for far longer than
5,000 years.
Yeah, they'd only planned to sleep for like what, 1,000 years?
Or like 100 or something. Or 500, I don't know. Somebody added an extra 0. So they tunnel underground, pop up in the Victorian camp. Catchlove is like, yo, what the hell's going on? Shoot those fools. And the guns have no effect at all.
Right. This is already after the Doctor and Bill and the Colonel have been imprisoned, so they're sort of just in a little cell off to the side.
Right.
And the Colonel has sort of a discussion about his desertion, about how he feels guilty about it. And there's sort of a gender-based quip about how like the Doctor and Bill are like, yeah, we're part of the police force, and not Catchlove, the Colonel laughs and he's like, ha ha, woman in the police force, ha ha ha.
Bill's like, I'll make allowances for your Victorian mentality because you're actually Victorian. It's interesting how in the previous Victorian story this season, it was all like, wasn't about Bill being a woman, it was about Bill being having darker skin. And then this story is like, Bill's a woman. Very interesting. I guess they're just covering all their bases with Victorian racist and sexist attitudes. I'm talking about Thin Ice, by the way. In case you
Wasn't that in like
or was that
1812?
maybe that
or
was
something?
Edwardian. Or maybe that was even pre-Edwardian. I don't know.
Well,
good question.
Edwardian is after Victorian. It goes
Ah, right.
Victorian, Edwardian, and I don't know what's after that.
Elizabethan?
No, there's like a bunch of Elizabeths. I have no idea, but like when people say Elizabethan, they're talking about like the Shakespeare era Elizabeth. So that's that era. Oh, I guess we're in another Elizabethan era because it's Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah.
So I guess this right now is the Elizabethan era as well.
Well, maybe we should find out who was queen or king in 1812. Who was queen in 1812? Queen Victoria.
Oh, what? Maybe it was another Queen Victoria.
I don't know why it says Queen Victoria, because then on this other page it's like King George was actually in power during 1812. So
still the King George era.
Yeah, must be.
Yeah, I mean he was
George
the king
had
during
recurrent and eventually permanent mental illness. It has been suggested that he had bipolar disorder. Wow, that's kind of wild, actually. I didn't know that. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, so an all-out battle starts. People are dying left and right.
Friday digs into the cell that the colonel and the doctor and Bill are in, and he's like, "I'm gonna bust you out because I don't want to see people just killing each other. We got to work together." And then the doctor's like, "Yeah, that's probably a good idea." So they run out, and then Catchlove decides to be a coward. That's the word I'm looking for.
Okay. Oh right, he takes Araxa hostage.
Yeah, he's like, "I'm leaving. You all can figure out your stuff on your own." And everyone's like, "Wow, Catchlove, wow." The colonel runs off first, actually. He's like, "I can't do this. I can't watch another massive defeat of my men like this." The doctor's like prepping the gargantuan because he threatens to blow the roof and kill all of them. Urax is like, "That's not sound military strategy." And the doctor's like, "Yeah, well, I'm not playing to win."
I'm going to do it, Araxa. I'm going to do it.
And that's when Catchlove takes her hostage. But then, right when he gets to the elevator door opens, and the colonel's right there, and he's like, "Gotcha!" Just shoots Catchlove in the stomach. And he's like, "Oh."
And he runs off like the deserter he is. No, I'm just kidding. He stays. He decides to face Araxa's wrath head on.
Well, she's like, "Wow, you saved my life. Don't expect this to change my opinion of your people." And he's like, "I don't, but I want you to kill me because, like, they were supposed to hang me for being a coward, and I just want someone to actually do the job right."
Yeah, he has this, like, I forget exactly what he says, but it's something, obviously along the lines of what you just said, but it's like, my life ended, like, however many years ago, and I've just been on, like, extended allowance since then, or something like that.
She basically says, like, "Sure, I'll kill you." And Bill's like, "You can't let this happen, Doctor." And the doctor's like, "Shh, let this happen." Bill's like, "What the hell, Doctor?" And then Irax is like...
He just stabs him in the throat. No.
He just pulls out a knife and slices his throat right now. She's like, "I won't do this right now, though. You have to join my people. You can die in battle," basically. She's like, "You can have an honorable death in battle." And he's like, "That's all I've ever asked for."
Because we're going to war with Earth, baby.
She's like, "We're invading Earth, baby. And you're on our side. Give us all the military tactics." Honestly, if the Ice Warriors had just invaded Earth at that point, they would have just totally like curb stomped the humans, because like the bullets have like no effect on the Ice Warriors' armor. So it would have been just devastating.
Well, remember, the Earthlings could have like enlisted the Zygons because they were there.
Great. Were they there in 1881?
Yeah, they had been there since like 500, remember?
Oh, yeah. Well, as we find out in the 13th Doctor episode, there's like pieces of a Dalek just lying around Earth at this point too, so they could have reassembled that if they wanted to as well. Man, I want to see a Daleks versus Ice Warriors story now.
I just want to see more Ice Warriors stories in general, because there's only like 4 of them. Like 5.
There's 6 of them.
Okay, whatever, same ballpark.
There's the Ice Warriors, Seeds of Doom, the 2 Peladon stories, Cold War, and then this one.
Yeah, that's far too few stories. for such a great villain.
I mean, that makes them like the, fourth most recurring villain or something, or fifth maybe. After the Daleks, Cybermen, Sontarans, Weeping Angels, and then it's like the Ice Warriors next.
Yeah.
So anyway, the Doctor's like, well, I'll put you in touch with someone who can help you basically join like the Galactic Alliance because your planet is dead. And I guess this is kind of like a prequel to the Peladon stories, but a sequel to the other Ice Warrior stories in that kind of regard, I guess.
Yeah, because
for the Ice Warriors, I mean.
Yeah. We hear the melodious voice of Isan Churchman, or however you pronounce her name.
We hear some dulcet tones. And if you're like a really diehard fan, you're like, oh, I know who that is instantly. If you're just a casual fan, you're like, that sounds familiar, but who could it be? And
if you're a modern-only fan, you have no idea what's going on.
But Irax is like, oh yeah, we'd like to help out. We want to join. Who am I speaking to? And it's like, I'm Alpha Centauri! It's me! Come back!
It's me, Mickey Mouse! And then who should appear but the lovable green phallic one-eyed monster that we all know and love.
I had to revive my Alpha Centauri impression for this. It was just such a momentous occasion. That one's for you, David. That one's for you.
Yep, Alpha Centauri is back, and sad as it is to say, this is one of the few moments that Doctor Who has ever elicited any sort of emotional response from me, because as soon as I heard the voice, I actually gasped, actually went,
You like they wouldn't dare. Those mad lads. I remember when I saw this, when I was watching it live, and I was like, oh, no, they didn't. They didn't. Oh, God, they did.
Solidifying Mark Gatiss as one of the greatest modern show writers, if he wasn't already.
Yeah, this might be the greatest moment of this entire season. It's actually not the greatest moment of this entire season because, well, I guess you'll see in 2 weeks' time.
Guess I will. So we end with the Colonel creating the God Save the Queen message out of rocks on the surface of Mars.
Yeah, because he's like, kind of sad that no one will ever know that us random Victorian explorers ended up on Mars. And the Doctor's like, I wouldn't be so sure of that given this giant God Save the Queen you just wrote on the surface.
And then the Doctor and Bill go back into the TARDIS. And
well, the TARDIS arrives because they're like, how are we going to get home? And the TARDIS shows up and the Doctor's like, whew, Nardole, cutting it a little fine there. He starts chastising Nardole because Nardole comes out. He comes out of the TARDIS.
And they go into the TARDIS. And who else should be there but Missy?
The one, the only. Missy! Do, 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 do. I don't know why I went for John Cena's theme. And she's like, well, the Doctor's really upset because like, this can't happen. You're supposed to stay in the vault. Like, this is a total breach of everything we agreed upon. Missy's like, yeah, but you needed my help. And she's like, how are you feeling, Doctor? Are you feeling okay? He's like, wait, what? I never really understood this exchange. If I'm going to be straight honest with you, including having watched all the episodes after this, I never really understood this exchange where Missy's like, how are you feeling, Doctor? Like,
I guess it's
really
just like...
got it.
I guess it's just like she's showing genuine concern for the Doctor for like the first time, and he's surprised about that.
Yeah, that's probably the most reasonable explanation. My alternate explanation is that it's a 10th Doctor going, don't you think she looks tired moment. That was how he took down Harriet Jones, Prime Minister. But then Harriet Jones redeems herself. Harriet Jones, former Prime Minister, redeems herself 3 years later. Harriet Jones really was one of the unsung heroes of the 10th Doctor's era. We don't give her enough commendation for heroic actions. We also don't give her enough condemnation for killing all the Sycorax. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it ends.
Then we get a next time trailer. And next week's episode is written by Rona Munro, who wrote Survival. The first and so far only classic show writer to appear on the reboot. Because we've had reboot on the reboot.
With the Victorians.
What is going on today? To appear on the reboot, although we have had classic series directors like Graham Harper and actors like
like the guy who played the Colonel.
I was gonna go for Alpha Centauri.
Yeah, because I don't know if we actually mentioned, but Alpha Centauri is played by the same voice actor who played it.
You know, I'm curious to know if they like dug up the old costume, or if that's just like archival footage from.
Yeah, you know, I don't know. Maybe they created a brand new Alpha Centauri.
For 4 seconds of screen time.
Yeah.
They did this reveal like every big movie, like every big sequel nowadays does their big reveal of a returning character where it's like you hear the voice or something, you see a silhouette, you don't know who it is, and then the static clears up and, oh no, it's... Well, I don't know why. Oh no. Oh yay, it's Alpha Centauri.
and you only see Alpha Centauri for like 1 second.
But this is like how they do the big reveals now. Blade Runner 2049, Ryan Gosling goes to Vegas. He's like, I'm looking for someone. And he goes to the casino, and you see a gun come out of the shadows. And who's holding the gun? It's Harrison Ford. Or Terminator. You go to the house. Who's sending all the text messages? You go to the house. You open the door, and it's Arnold. It's Arnold Schwarzenegger. Star Wars did this, you know. It's the Millennium Falcon, and they're like, oh, it's been stolen by some randos. And they get captured by some more randos, and someone's coming on the ship, and who is it? It's Harrison Ford again. It's Harrison Ford again.
Well, he got from Vegas to space really quickly.
What would have been great was this. It just sounds like Alpha Centauri, and the screen clears up, and it's just Harrison Ford talking like Alpha Centauri.
Yeah, you know, I actually watched Air Force One recently. Another
Harrison Ford
movie, and I thought for sure there was going to be a big twist, like the president like was in on it all at the end or something. But no, it actually was just like terrorists.
It's a nice, straightforward terrorist plot.
Yeah. I was like, throughout the entire movie, like up into the last like 5 seconds, I was like, all right, when's the big reveal that like Harrison Ford is in on this? It just never came.
Because it didn't exist.
No.
Wasn't a thing. Well, so that's the whole story.
Yeah. And like Air Force One, this was a pretty straightforward but solid story.
The most bizarre comparison in existence. Doctor Who and Air Force One of all movies. Air Force Bloody One. I thought it was quite good, though. I don't say really good, but quite good.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think it's one of the strongest ones this season. And the more I think about it, I know we've been sort of harping on this for the entire season, but I mean, Series 10 really is a massive throwback to classic Doctor Who. But what I kind of realized this last week was that the three-parter of, I can't even remember what it's called now.
Extremis, Pyramid at the End of the World, and Lie of the Land.
Yeah, that sort of three-parter was sort of like I know we called it like a mini season last week, and I still kind of think that, but that was like a mini like modern Doctor Who within this larger like classic show inspired season.
Damn. It's modern Doctor Who within classic Doctor Who within modern Doctor Who.
It's kind of what it is, yeah.
It's like a Russian nesting doll of Doctor Who. I forgot to mention this last week, but it took me like 2 years to realize that the lie of the land wasn't referring to like, you know, it kind of is referring to the phrase like that's just the lie of the land, but also like it's referring to the lie that is that the monks were there the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah. To be fair, the first time I watched these, I did not pay much attention to the titles of the stories, so. Yeah, I mean, when I watched these the first time, this was a story that really solidified to me that this whole season was a throwback to the classic show. That this is like the kind of Stephen Moffat doing classic Doctor Who, bringing that meme back. Stephen Moffat does classic Doctor Who in his own little way. I feel like the three-parter is like the most indicative of Stephen Moffat putting his own spin on this. But stories like this is a very classic story. The TARDIS gets put out of commission, in some hilarious, nonsensical way. It's Ice Warriors. They're on the moon.
Mars.
Damn, we keep saying on Mars. They're on Mars.
And I mean the doc, like a classic show staple sort of setup was like the Doctor and companions arrive like in the midst of this confrontation between two forces, and they have to sort it all out. And
that happens a lot in the reboot as well.
Yeah, that's true.
That's kind of just a staple of Doctor Who. So I think it's pretty fascinating, actually. Pretty fascinating. And I definitely think that continues for the next 3 stories. Because I'm including the Christmas special in this.
Oh.
Christmas special especially so because the first Doctor bloody shows up in that, so it's like kind of hard not to draw those comparisons, right?
Yeah.
But I really like this story. Mark Gatiss hasn't written for the show since Chris Chibnall basically...
It's only been 2 years, 2.5-ish. Since Chris Chibnall took over.
Haven't really announced who's writing for Series 12 yet, so that's going to be interesting. Though the Jadoon are coming back, and they have mohawks now.
They haven't really announced like anything for Series 12. There's been a few teasers. Other than that, like...
Yeah, Chris Chibnall's been a lot more... tight-lipped about revealing things for the show. I think
Stephen Moffat, the Doctor's gonna die.
Yeah, I think he's taking the opposite approach that Stephen Moffat did, because I think he's playing it more like, these things will be more interesting if people don't know what's coming up when it happens. Which, I don't know, I think a balance between the two is better. I do think that if the BBC hadn't gone and damn spoiled the big twist of the story 2 weeks from now in the first week of the season, that this season that story would be even more highly regarded than it is now.
Well, I don't know the twist, so maybe I'll regard it higher than most people do. But like going back to the whole like Chibnall versus Moffat marketing style thing, like how much of that is actually up to them of like, do we reveal the trailer now or later?
I think a surprising amount of it is actually up to them, from what I've heard. That they have like pretty, not maybe heavy control over what content is in the trailer necessarily, but they have
like when it drops.
They have pretty heavy control over like what information to release from the production of the show, when to release it. That they actually do have quite some power in that department.
Yeah. I mean, I just say that because like people, at least in the world of like movies, often misattribute like everything to the director. Mm-hmm. As if like the director themselves, and sometimes they actually do, but a lot of the time they don't. Like the director, him or herself, is like actually cutting the trailer and like deciding when to release it, when it's often not the case.
Nope. Like Suicide Squad, when the trailer was cut by a trailer house and everybody loved it so much that even the studio executives loved it, they had that trailer house recut the whole movie.
Well, look where that got them. A crappy, forgotten movie that's actually only remembered for like being like pretty just mediocre or bad.
For the memes. We remember it for the memes.
I don't come across any Suicide Squad memes, really. But
remember for the meme of it being bad.
I guess.
I remember seeing that movie opening night in IMAX.
Were you disappointed?
I was whelmed.
Yeah, I actually watched that in the theaters as well. I barely watch movies in movie theaters, and I watched Suicide Squad in movie theaters.
That was the movie you chose to do that for.
Yep.
You know what? My most defining memory of seeing that movie was the guy behind us. When the credits started rolling, the guy behind us who like really yelled, "Take that, Rotten Tomatoes!" And everyone else was like, "Okay, buddy, all right." Guess he really loved the movie.
So, sonic screwdriver count. I only had it being used for an unknown purpose.
Yeah, that and failing to open a wooden door.
Yeah.
Doctor tries to open the door to the cell and it's made of wood, and he's like, damn.
Wood, my worst enemy.
My question is, how did they build that door? Did they just like...
Are there trees?
Did they bring a door with... Did they like specifically bring a door with them when they went to Mars?
Well, there's oxygen underground on Mars, so maybe they're like underground Martian forests.
But the planet is dead.
But that's the surface. Maybe there's like underground
forests. The planet is dead. I have 2 quotes this week. This is the Doctor talking about the Ice Warriors. They could destroy entire civilizations and then weep at the crushing of flowers. Talking about how the Ice Warriors are not the scary monsters that everybody seems to think they are.
Except for the first part where they can destroy entire civilizations.
Yeah. But then they could weep at the crushing of flowers. It's kind of a throwback to how the Ice Warriors became... not like protagonists, but allies, I guess, when, in the Peladon stories, which was... I think we mentioned this last week or 2 weeks ago, that the Ice Warriors were one of the only like classic show antagonists that became like a protagonist. They like swapped sides.
Yeah, now that you mention it, going along with the sort of imperialist stuff that's going on in this story, there's like that entire thing of like the what's it actually called? There's like a term, like the noble savage type thing, and that's definitely what Friday from Robinson Crusoe like is, that like archetype of like, imperialist forces, go in, and the story is obviously written from their perspective, and they conquer whoever because of superior military and technological might, but at the end of the day they're like, we have a lot to learn from like these people, which is like effed up in its own right. But like I feel like some of that's going on here with the Ice Warriors like being conquered, but then like obviously this sort of flips the tables of like, yeah, actually we are like way more powerful than you and we're gonna destroy you type thing.
Yeah.
But, like there's some of that still, like even despite like this story kind of again like flipping that on its head, there's still some of that like imperialist like stuff I think going on.
I mean, definitely. The Doctor calls the Victorians out. He's like, you're just imperialists. You just want to colonize this planet. And they're like, yeah, we're claiming it for the glory of the British Empire. At some point, Cashlove even says, like, well, Mars belongs to the British Empire now.
Yeah, but I mean, even then, like, obviously the Victorians are like the quote-unquote bad guys in that situation. They're not doing the right thing, according to the logic of the story. But, like, even with that, like, perspective that their, imperialism is, like, wrong type thing, even with that, there's, like, still sort of, like, an imperialist, like, bent. Like, the story kind of goes that way. I don't know. I still feel like
I can see it, kind of, I guess.
Of, like, what's like, the ultimatum of, like, an imperialist force that frees its lands of like, now, it's like that thing of like people say like Obama being elected president is like the ultimate form of slavery because the U.S. can now use like a black man as like worldwide capital to be like, look, we're not racist. Like, look, see, we elected a black president. It seems like this story is almost kind of the same sort of thing of like, look, see, like we're not imperialist. Look, we were writing these stories that are anti-imperialist. See, we gave up our imperialist ways. But I don't know. I don't have anything more to say about it than that. But yeah,
yeah, I guess I can kind of see what you're saying. I don't know. The Obama thing kind of got immediately undermined by the fact that you guys, since I wasn't allowed to vote in that election, that you guys elected a massive racist, alleged racist, I guess I should say. But it's, I mean, it seems like if you look at the evidence, it's, you draw your own conclusions immediately after him. So, I mean, after him being Obama. Anyway, my other quote is, I dare say that the British Army is more than a match for a bunch of upright crocodiles, just because I thought it was funny. Those are my quotes.
Yeah, pretty good ones. I had none, again.
Bummer. That's a bummer.
And despite me saying like a couple weeks ago that I was going to have at least one per episode, yeah, I don't have anything.
Wow,
yep.
Nice. Well, on that note, if you'd like to email us, you can reach us at thedoctor@decorativevegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on Ice Warriors on Mars. You can find us on YouTube at Decorative Vegetable. Find us on Apple Podcasts and Google Play, and Spotify, all at Trust Your Doctor. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter at TYD Podcast and follow us on Twitter. And next time we're going to be watching The Eaters of Light. But until then, the end.